At 11:47 p.m. on a cold November night in suburban Ohio, 34-year-old Jennifer Matthews looked out her kitchen window and saw a man in her backyard. He was standing completely still near her fence, staring at her house. She didn't recognize him. Her husband was away on business. Her two kids were asleep upstairs. Her hands shaking, Jennifer did what anyone would do. She called 911. "There's a strange man in my yard. I don't know who he is. I'm scared." When police arrived 12 minutes later, what they discovered didn't just change Jennifer's life forever. It exposed a hidden reality that affects nearly 600,000 people across America every single year. A crisis so devastating that it's been called the invisible emergency by mental health experts. By the end of this story, you'll never look at a stranger the same way again. Let's rewind 6 hours before that 911 call. Jennifer Matthews had just finished her nursing shift at Cleveland Metro Hospital. 12-hour shifts on your feet dealing with emergencies leave you exhausted, but Jennifer loved her job. She'd been an ER nurse for 8 years, drawn to helping people in their most vulnerable moments. That night, she drove home thinking about her daughter's upcoming 7th birthday party, mentally planning decorations and cake flavors. Normal mom thoughts. Safe thoughts. Her life was predictable, structured, protected by routine. Her neighborhood, Maple Ridge Estates, was one of those places where people left their garage doors open and kids rode bikes until dark. The kind of community where everyone knew everyone, where crime was practically non-existent. According to local police data, there hadn't been a serious incident in that subdivision in over 4 years. Which is why what Jennifer saw through her kitchen window at 11:47 p.m. shattered her sense of security completely. The man was tall, wearing dark clothing that blended with the shadows. He stood motionless about 20 feet from her back door, positioned between her garden shed and the wooden fence that separated her property from the woods behind the neighborhood. He wasn't trying to break in. He wasn't moving at all. He was just standing there. Jennifer's first instinct was to turn off the kitchen light so he couldn't see her. Her second instinct was pure maternal panic. Her children were upstairs. Her third instinct was to grab her phone. The 911 call recording, which was later released to the media, captures the rawness of her fear. 911. What's your emergency? There's a man in my backyard. I don't know who he is. Is he trying to enter your home? No, he's just standing there. But I have 2 children sleeping upstairs and my husband isn't home, and I don't understand what he's doing. Ma'am, stay inside with your doors locked. Officers are on the way. Here's what most people don't realize. According to FBI crime statistics, an estimated 2.5 million home intrusion reports are filed annually in the United States. But here's the staggering part. In nearly 40% of cases involving suspicious persons on private property, the situation turns out to be far more complex than simple trespassing. Jennifer stayed on the line with the dispatcher, her eyes never leaving the dark figure in her yard. Minutes felt like hours. She checked on her sleeping children 3 times. She turned on every light inside her house, hoping the brightness would scare the intruder away. But he didn't move. When the patrol car's red and blue lights finally splashed across her front lawn, Jennifer felt a wave of relief so powerful she actually started crying. 2 officers, Officer Marcus Thompson and Officer Sarah Chun, approached her front door. "He's still out there," Jennifer told them, pointing toward the backyard. "I don't know what he wants." Officer Thompson, a 15-year veteran, nodded calmly. "We'll handle this, ma'am. Stay inside." What happened next nobody could have predicted. Officer Thompson and Officer Chin drew their flashlights and moved around the side of the house toward the backyard. Their body cameras, which would later be reviewed thousands of times, captured every detail of what came next. The beams of their flashlights cut through the darkness, landing on the figure Jennifer had seen. He was indeed standing near the fence, wearing a jacket that looked too thin for the near-freezing temperature. As the officers approached, weapons drawn but not raised, they called out, "Sir, this is private property. We need you to identify yourself." The man didn't respond immediately. He turned slowly, and that's when Officer Chin noticed something that made her lower her flashlight slightly. The man wasn't armed. He wasn't aggressive. His face, illuminated now in the harsh LED light, showed something else entirely. Confusion. Deep, profound confusion. "Sir, can you tell us your name?" Officer Thompson asked, his tone shifting from authoritative to concerned. The man's voice came out rough, like he hadn't used it in a while. I'm trying to find home. I need to get home. What's your address, sir? The man looked around the backyard as if seeing it for the first time. I don't know where I am. Officer Chin stepped closer, and that's when she noticed his bare feet. No shoes. In November. In Ohio. His feet were cut and bleeding. His clothes were dirty, torn in places. And when she looked into his eyes, she recognized something from her crisis intervention training. This wasn't a criminal. This was someone in the middle of a medical emergency. Sir, what's your name? She asked gently. David. David Morrison. My wife is waiting. She's waiting for dinner. I need to get home. Officer Thompson was already on his radio, requesting medical assistance and running the name through their database. What came back stopped him cold. David Morrison, age 67, reported missing 48 hours earlier from a memory care facility 16 miles away. He had advanced Alzheimer's disease. And suddenly, everything clicked into a devastating clarity. This wasn't an intruder. This was someone's father, someone's husband, lost and frightened, and trying desperately to find his way home to a house he probably hadn't lived in for years. Officer Chin immediately called for an ambulance while Officer Thompson approached David slowly, speaking in the calm, measured tone you'd use with a scared child. David, my name is Marcus. You're safe now. We're going to help you get warm, okay? But here's where the story takes another turn, one that nobody saw coming. Jennifer, watching from her window, had called her neighbor Linda Reeves, asking her to come stay with the kids so she could talk to the police about what happened. Linda arrived just as the ambulance pulled up. And when Linda saw the man being helped into the back of the ambulance, she gasped. Oh my God, that's David Morrison. Jennifer stared at her neighbor. You know him? Linda's eyes filled with tears. He used to live in this house. This was his house. He and his wife Margaret raised their 3 children here. They lived here for 35 years before Margaret died and David's family had to move him into memory care. The pieces fell into place with crushing emotional weight. David Morrison hadn't been trespassing. He'd been trying to go home. To the only home his fractured memory could still hold on to. To the place where his wife once waited for him at dinner. To the backyard where he'd probably pushed his kids on swings and grilled burgers on summer evenings. He'd walked 16 miles, barefoot, confused, operating on nothing but the ghost of a memory, trying to find the life Alzheimer's had stolen from him. Officer Chin sat in the ambulance with David while paramedics checked his vitals and treated his injured feet. She held his hand, and he gripped it tightly, like a drowning man holding a lifeline. Is Margaret here? He asked. Is my wife home? Officer Chin made a choice in that moment. She could tell him the truth, that Margaret had died 6 years ago, that he'd been living in a memory care facility, that he was lost and confused. Or she could give him comfort. She wants you to get checked out by the doctors first, David. She wants to make sure you're okay. He nodded, satisfied, and closed his eyes. Back at the house, Jennifer was standing in her backyard with Linda, staring at the spot where David had been standing. She felt a complicated mix of emotions, relief that her family was safe, guilt for calling 911, and overwhelming sadness for a man whose own mind had become his prison. I had no idea, Jennifer said quietly. I was so scared. But he was just trying to come home. Linda put an arm around her. You did the right thing calling. You didn't know. And honestly, you might have saved his life. It's supposed to drop below freezing tonight. Here's the reality that David Morrison's story exposes. According to the Alzheimer's Association, 6 in 10 people with dementia will wander at least once. Many wander repeatedly. In 2023 alone, over 100,000 cases of wandering were reported to authorities. And here's the devastating statistic. If someone with dementia isn't found within 24 hours, up to half of them will suffer serious injury or death. David Morrison was one of the lucky ones. His family was contacted immediately. His daughter, Rachel Morrison Hughes, arrived at the hospital where David was being treated. When she saw her father, exhausted, confused, his feet bandaged, she broke down sobbing. Later, she spoke to local news about the incident. When we got the call that Dad was missing, we thought we'd lost him forever. People with Alzheimer's who wander, sometimes they don't come back. The fact that someone saw him, that they called for help, that the officers treated him with such compassion, it gave us our father back for a little while longer. But the story didn't end there. Jennifer Matthews couldn't stop thinking about David. She'd seen trauma and emergency in her years as an ER nurse, but something about this situation haunted her. She reached out to Rachel Morrison Hughes and asked if they could meet. That meeting changed both their lives. Jennifer learned that Rachel had been advocating for better tracking systems and community awareness programs for dementia patients who wander. She'd been trying to get her local government to implement a silver alert system, similar to Amber Alerts for missing children, specifically for vulnerable adults with cognitive conditions. Jennifer, with her nursing background and newfound understanding of the issue, joined Rachel's advocacy efforts. Together, they launched a community program called Bring Them Home in Maple Ridge Estates and surrounding neighborhoods. The program trained residents to recognize signs of someone who might be experiencing a medical emergency rather than criminal behavior. They distributed information about what to do if you encounter someone who seems lost or confused. They worked with local police to improve response protocols for vulnerable adults. Within 6 months, their program helped locate 4 other individuals with dementia who had wandered from care facilities or homes. 4 more families were spared the nightmare of losing someone they loved. Officer Sarah Chun was so moved by the case that she became a certified crisis intervention team officer, specializing in mental health and cognitive disability response. She now trains other officers across Ohio on how to recognize and respond to situations involving people with dementia, mental illness, or other conditions that might present as threatening but require compassion instead of force. As for David Morrison, he lived another 18 months after that November night. His daughter Rachel said that in his lucid moments, he would sometimes talk about the nice police officers who helped him find his way. He didn't remember being lost, but he remembered kindness. He passed away peacefully in March of the following year, surrounded by his family. At his funeral, Jennifer Matthews attended. She'd never met David when he was healthy, never knew the man he'd been before Alzheimer's took him. But his story had touched her so deeply that she felt connected to him anyway. Jennifer Matthews still lives in that house, David Morrison's former home. Sometimes she stands in that backyard and thinks about the night that changed her perspective forever. The night she learned that fear and compassion can exist in the same moment. That safety and kindness aren't opposites. She keeps a photo on her refrigerator, not of David, but of a quote from Maya Angelou. There is no greater agony than bearing an untold story inside you. David Morrison's story needed to be told, because hidden in our communities, in care facilities and homes across America, are hundreds of thousands of people slowly losing themselves to dementia. There's someone's parent, someone's spouse, someone's whole world gradually disappearing. And sometimes, the stranger in your yard isn't a threat. Sometimes, they're just someone trying desperately to find their way home to a life they can barely remember but can't forget. The next time you see someone who seems out of place, confused, or lost, before fear takes over, ask yourself, could this person need help instead of suspicion? Could this moment be an opportunity for compassion instead of conflict? If this story touched you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more stories that remind us of our shared humanity. Share this video with your family and friends, especially if you have loved ones with dementia or cognitive conditions. Drop a comment telling us, have you ever had an encounter with a stranger that turned out to be completely different from what you expected? And if you want to make a real difference, look up dementia awareness programs in your community. Volunteer at memory care facilities. Learn the signs of someone who might be experiencing cognitive distress. Because David Morrison's story proves that sometimes, the most important call we make isn't to the police. It's the call to our better angels, reminding us that everyone we meet is fighting a battle we know nothing about.